Hello and good morning. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. This is a great time to recognize the hard work of so many people in Florida to tackle one of the biggest challenges we face not only here in Florida but nationwide, and that is the fight against opioid abuse and deaths. And so we wanted to gather everyone today to not only make an announcement, we believe it's a very positive announcement, but also to continue to engage our community as we inform them about our progress, engage them to help us in this fight. As everyone in this room knows, the entire nation is in the grips of a deadly opioid crisis, and that crisis continues to claim lives right here in Florida. It's a crisis that I have been fighting since my first day in office, like everyone that's working out of this building here in FDLE, like those that are in our treatment and rehabilitative facilities across Florida. I know many families and communities have been fighting this. It's a crisis that we are fighting not just here in the U.S., but we're pushing back and fighting against the deadly fentanyl that is flowing in from Mexico, with little help from that nation in that fight. But Florida has taken a very novel approach, an aggressive approach, and we're seeing results. I am cautiously optimistic about the report that we are announcing today. It is still tragic in the sense that we are talking about deaths and the number of deaths of Floridians, and every single death represents a mom, a child, an uncle, a brother, a cousin, a teacher. I could go on and on. Everyone in Florida has felt the effect of an opioid death or a family member or friend struggling with opioid addiction. But I am proud to say that in our fight, Florida is getting it right. We lead the nation in fentanyl seizures right here in Florida. That is a staggering statistic, and I am so proud of the work of not only our statewide agencies, but our local partners, both sheriff's departments and municipal police agencies that work with us every day. They are relentless in those efforts, and we are seeing encouraging news. According to the new Florida Department of Law Enforcement Medical Examiner's Drug Identified in Deceased Persons 2023 Interim Report, the total drug-related deaths, opioid-caused deaths, and deaths caused by fentanyl are all on the decline. In fact, this is the greatest percentage decrease in deaths caused by fentanyl in our state since 2016. It is also the third consecutive report showing a decrease in total drug-related deaths. According to the just released report that covers the first 6 months of 2023, Florida experienced a 7% decrease in total drug-related deaths, a 10% decrease in deaths caused by fentanyl, and a 10% decrease in opioid-caused deaths. Right here in Tampa Bay, the Tampa Medical Examiner District dropped from the fourth highest in deaths caused by fentanyl to the sixth here in Florida. Like I said, this news is encouraging. I am optimistic about the work that we are doing and the results that we are seeing, but the death toll is still way too high. In the first 6 months of 2023, more than 7,000 people across Florida died of a drug overdose. Over the past several years, more than 100,000 people nationwide have died yearly as a result of drug overdose. And I continuously give a stat that puts this number in perspective. When the term Just Say No started by Nancy Reagan in the 80s, we were losing just over 3,000 nationwide to drug overdose deaths. Just over 3,000. And at the time, we were considered to be in a drug overdose crisis. We now lose over 100,000 Americans every year to drug overdose deaths. Illicit fentanyl from Mexico is responsible for the vast majority of these deaths. I cannot say enough how important it is that we shut that flow down and stop that trade from the cartels coming into our nation. But the reality is I have been fighting that, securing our border, fighting in court unlawful policies regarding to illegal immigration and the surge that has caused. The reality is we are still seeing this flooding into our nation. And so I'm so proud of the aggressive and ingenuitive efforts we've taken here in this state to take fentanyl, this poison, off of our streets, put traffickers that are peddling this behind bars, but also help our law enforcement and first responders in responding to calls of emergency and overdose, and most importantly, helping those that are struggling with addiction get the help that they need, because we now know that deadly fentanyl is laced with every kind of street drug that you can think of. And while you may have had an addiction in the past and felt that you could take this drug and it wouldn't cause death, which we could argue about that and debate that all day, now it is highly likely that whatever drug you think you're taking is laced with fentanyl. In fact, the DEA reports that 7 out of 10 pills that are seized contain a lethal dose of fentanyl. And that is why we are seeing so many deaths across our state. We are waging this war on multiple fronts. Like I said, Florida leads the nation in fentanyl seizures in our state. So proud of our law enforcement agencies. You heard just last week, Grady Judd make a great announcement of a seizure of fentanyl. It was one of the largest, although I stood with him recently. We announced the largest fentanyl seizure in Polk County. So proud of those folks right here in the Tampa Bay area. Sheriff Chronister, Sheriff Gualtieri, Sheriff Naco, working super hard, all of our municipal agencies to work with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and take advantage of programs we've started here in Florida, like our SAFE program. We are pushing money into local agencies, giving them the resources they need for investigative efforts to go after these individuals and seize fentanyl. It's working. You don't lead the nation in fentanyl seizures without resources and without leadership, and we're doing that here. I'm also proud of our prosecutors across the state that are taking fentanyl seriously, charging it as appropriate. When someone intentionally gives fentanyl, knows that it will kill somebody, they charge them with homicide. They're putting people behind bars who are selling this poison and killing Floridians. I will continue to do my job and push back and secure our border and push back on unlawful policies to the extent that we can. But we will make sure that our first responders here are equipped, that they have the resources they need through our programs like Helping Heroes, where they have Narcan on their person and can help people, in agencies where they're willing to do that and partner with us. And finally, I would just like to commend every single person that is watching this report right now, where we are talking about the third consecutive report in decrease in fentanyl deaths here in Florida. It is not just about law enforcement stepping up their game and going after fentanyl traffickers. It is about those of you in the community that are hearing us. You're listening to the information we're giving you about the danger of using illicit drugs. You're talking to your family members that you know have a problem. You're helping them get help. You're encouraging your friends that you think who have been addicted for a very long period of time to take the step now. We've made it so easy. You can go to treatmentatlas.org. Treatmentatlas.org. Put in your information and you can see what's recommended to you and what's available in terms of resources. That is what is helping drive these numbers. It's folks paying attention to announcements like this and our plea to get help. That's what's going to help us drive these deaths down. So with our aggressive approach, not just in the criminal courts, look, I've taken Biden to court on the immigration policies. We've taken criminals into court and put them behind bars. But we need the community's help in making sure that those that are struggling with addiction get help. And that's what today is about. That's what we're imploring the message to be. This is good news. I am cautiously optimistic we are heading in the right direction. But we are still dealing with an incredible amount of deaths here in Florida. And the only way we can get back to some sort of normalcy is if folks recognize the crisis and take proactive steps to help themselves and their family members. So thank you for those of you that woke up this morning and came out for this important announcement. This is really great news for Florida, and it is how we will continue to build a stronger state. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring up Mark Glass.
Well, thank you everyone for being here today, and I'm Commissioner Mark Glass from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. I want to thank Attorney General Moody. She has been one of the stalwarts in this whole war against fentanyl. Her and I went out to Arizona and the border, and we got to see it firsthand. We got to see what the problem is coming across that border. It's here. But also, I want to thank Deputy Mayor Morgan here with me today, and his ability to come up here and talk to you as soon as I'm finished. He's got a great message. But also, I want to thank our medical examiners. These are unsung heroes in our criminal justice system. They're having to go through all this data and go through this and ensure that we got the right information. FDLE staffs the Medical Examiners Commission. We support them and we compile this data so we can be proactive at seeking out these bad actors, drug trafficking organizations, and those who are bringing this illicit narcotics into our state. We work hand in hand, FDLE, with local and state and federal law enforcement officers. And as you heard the Attorney General talk about the SAFE program, Governor DeSantis and lawmakers signed into the SAFE initiative, which is statewide assistance for fentanyl eradication in our state. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, this is one of the best programs for criminal justice that we've had in a long time. We have had the Attorney General's Office of Statewide Prosecution involved. We've had local leaders involved. We've had police chiefs and sheriff's offices. She told you about Grady Judd and all the great efforts he's been able to do. But I'm going to give you a little bit of stat on this one for you. To date, there's been 110 approved investigations with a $14.7 million obligated for these types of investigations. We have already, within probably about 6 to 8 months, seized over 37 kilograms of fentanyl, over 30,000 fentanyl pills, 55 kilograms of cocaine, 20 kilograms of methamphetamine, over $500,000 in currency seized, 72 firearms, and over 410 arrests. And this is just the start. We've only really been at this since September. So as you heard the stats that she talked about with the MEC's report, we're talking about looking at the interim report from January to June of 2023, comparing it to January and June of 2022, she just discussed with you the 7% decrease in deaths, drug-related. Now, fentanyl is still the leading cause in all these drug-related deaths. 6 months on the interim report, we're at 2,500 deaths. 2,500 deaths in 6 months just to fentanyl alone. That's a staggering stat. Now, one life lost is one too many, and we cannot continue to go down this road with losing people. We all have family. As you heard the Attorney General talk about, it's not just law enforcement interdiction. It's not just law enforcement and the judicial system putting them behind bars. That's needed. You have to do that. However, we have family, and this affects us all. So tonight, parents, I encourage you, if you're listening to me now, when you're at the dinner table with your child, I want you to get out a magnifying glass, and I want you to take your table salt. Count out 7 to 9 grains of salt. You're going to need a magnifying glass to do this and tweezers and everything. And count it out. That's what kills you. That's what kills you, and that's what we have got to be preaching to our children and to our neighbors and to our relatives, to our mothers and fathers, that you take illicit drugs. You may think it looks like a prescription drug, but if that doctor did not prescribe it to you and you didn't go to the pharmacist to go get it, do not take it. These drug traffickers are getting very good at stamping these to look like prescription drugs. They will also put them in prescription pill bottles. So if you think your friend got something out of your grandmother's cabinet or out of your family's cabinet and put those pills in there and wants you to take it, don't take it. They're not pharmaceutical grade. They're not, you can have a bad amount in there and it could kill you. It doesn't take much. So please, 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 I implore you parents, and there in myfloridalegal.net has a lot of toolkits for you to go to help stop this. So on behalf of FDLE, I want to say I'm optimistically hoping next year you're going to see the 6 months we're going to talk about with all this fentanyl eradication from Operation Safe. I'm hoping we are going to see a even more drastic decline in fentanyl and drug deaths. So with that, I want to turn it back over to the Attorney General. Thank you.
And I just wanted to take a moment to introduce to you Deputy Mayor Matt Morgan. Has driven across the state because he believed this is such an important message for Florida, for parents, for kids that are struggling with addiction. He is a remarkable example of turning one's life around to make a positive difference in the community after experiencing such addiction challenges. And I am proud to introduce you to Matt Morgan.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I swear one day they're going to make a microphone for a 7-foot tall person. I promise. I'm Longwood City Deputy Mayor Matt Morgan, also a former 3-time mayor in the great city of Longwood, Florida, Seminole County. Most importantly, I'm an 18-year recovered opioid addict. I was what you would call a functioning addict. Lifelong dream was to be a WWE superstar since I was a little boy at 6 years old. Got to live out that childhood dream of becoming that WWE superstar and professional wrestler, along with becoming an American gladiator. Might be a shocker to those of you watching versus the other career choices, right? But dreamed of this all my life and got an injury. Before I knew it, got hooked on painkillers. 2 weeks into my very first prescription of painkillers, might I add. Ended up on a 5-year addiction where I couldn't go a 4-hour window without anywhere between 100 to 120 milligrams of oxy or hydrocodones. And folks, this is now 18 years sober. This is back when we didn't have to worry about fentanyl being laced in black market painkillers, where I would get a majority of my painkillers besides the prescription route. Okay. My head is, that was my option. That's how I performed my job. Tons of rationalizations. The point is, I ended up overdosing 7 times. 7 times. That's without the advent of Narcan that we see out through our tremendous leadership with Attorney General here, Ashley Moody, in forward-thinking measures of getting Narcan out all over the place, and more importantly, treating addiction the way it's supposed to be treated, which is it's absolutely a mental health illness. Make no mistake about that. But while at the same time, you got to be very firm with those that are dealing these drugs. And the fentanyl that is coming across our border, that's not an exaggeration. That's not hyperbole. That's not political. It's fact. And I have the facts to back it up because one of my other roles that I do is I work with the Orlando Recovery Center in downtown Orlando. I help save people's lives every single darn day. I'm proud to do it, proud to share my testimonial. But more importantly, I'm proud to be in the front of a leader like this that has those forward-thinking measures, that has that care, that understands this is a mental health illness, while at the same time throwing the book at those. Okay, that specifically on purpose are dealing these drugs knowing that there's fentanyl laced in it. Let me be clear. If I was using my painkillers the way I was 18, 20 years ago with my addiction, I'd be dead 35 times over. Okay, make no mistake about that because I didn't have to worry about fentanyl being laced in my painkillers. So to anybody watching this, especially children that you're watching this today, dream as big as you could possibly dream. Put the work in behind it, but behind those dreams. Most importantly though, anytime your friends want to bring up using drugs, maybe trying alcohol for the first time, maybe try to smoke a cigarette for the first time, say no. I know it sounds easier said than done, but if you don't start this, the better off we're all going to be. That includes all of us as parents. I'm blessed to be a father of a nonverbal autistic 10-year-old son named Jackson Morgan. I love him to death and back. And believe you me, my wife and I have explained it thousands and thousands of times to keep my son and others away from even being introduced to this stuff. I know we can't be everywhere where our children are, but it does start at home with, thank God, my mom and dad, and again, people in my family were able to help pick me up when I was down and I reached out for help. Those you watching, if you're struggling right now, there's no shame in getting help. You could turn your life completely around. I'm one of millions that have been able to be blessed to get their life back through great policies and great leadership, just like we're seeing right here with our Attorney General, Ashley Moody. Thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I think what's important to take away from that testimonial is that everyone, no matter what you have been through, no matter what your challenges, no matter your addiction, no matter your weaknesses, everyone has something positive that they can offer in the future. Everyone, if they make that choice. And we're so glad that people like Deputy Mayor Morgan made that choice to get help because he's gone on to serve his community in so many ways. He probably never imagined when he was in a wrestling ring that he would be a public servant trying to help others save their lives. And so hear that. If you are struggling with addiction and think you have nothing else to offer or you can't overcome that, you just heard someone say they did overcome that and they couldn't go a few hours without using. So I implore you again, if you are struggling with addiction, go to treatmentatlas.org. And if you have never touched drugs, don't. It will never become a problem if you never use drugs the first time. Thank you again for helping us get this word out. And if there are any questions, we'd be happy to entertain those at this time.
Just a quick question. When it comes to the border, obviously a lot happens at the federal level, out of your hands, or hands might be tied at the state level. But what more can the state do or continue to do to attack it from itself? I know there was recovery mentioned, the legal process, all of that.
This is such a great question. And I wanted the message today to be about the signs of progress we're seeing in Florida. And again, the message to Floridians about getting help. But it is hard to discuss the death toll and the significance that it's had on Florida without saying the tragedy that we are seeing in the lack of enforcement of the law at the border. I mean, it's as simple as following the law. And if we would just follow the law in the books and not create all these breakdowns in the border and implementation of unlawful policies, we wouldn't see this surge like this. And so it's hard for law enforcement, I'm not going to lie, to be standing here and talking about all the incredible programs and steps and resources and money and manpower that we're throwing into this problem without saying so much of this could have been avoided if we just had law enforced at the border. And every time I won in court, every single time Florida would win in court, it was like whack-a-mole. They would just create another unlawful policy that would break the border down even further. And so it has been one of the most frustrating things in my professional career, watching the law be ignored, someone call them out, get a court to say you're ignoring the law, you're breaking the law, you cannot do that, Biden. And then as soon as that happens, a new policy is created that's unlawful and we have to go attack that. It truly is like whack-a-mole that you see at the fair. That is frustrating. Nonetheless, leaders don't sit around and complain about the challenges. Leaders dig in and do what has to be done to face the realities. And that's what we've done here in Florida. And so what I'm so proud about in this state, and many issues we do this, but specifically we've said, okay, what do? We're never just going to stop this by putting people in jail alone. We will have to step up our efforts. There are serious traffickers out there. Fentanyl will kill you. We've got to address that in how we're prosecuting and taking traffickers off the street, but we cannot stop there. And so that is why we've created programs like Helping Heroes to put Narcan in the hands of first responders and programs through DCF to make sure Narcan is pushed out into communities. We've made it available over the counter now. If you're a family member and you have someone struggling, you can go into a Walgreens and get it right now. We've made those changes. And we've also focused on helping those that we're dealing with now. But none of this will help. Law enforcement, drugs like naloxone, treating addiction, none of that will solve the problem if we can't keep the pipeline of drugs into the state and new addicts at bay. And so I can't stress enough how important securing our border, stop giving so much control and profit to cartels who are gladly loving this approach to no law enforcement at the border because we have increased their wealth by billions. They are that much stronger. But we have to also talk about the pipeline of new addicts. And that is our children. Those are our community members that maybe haven't tried yet any type of illicit substance. And we need to get back to the basics of just say no. Just say no. Because if you never try an illicit substance, you will never have a problem. And whether or not you have an addictive personality or whether or not that is something that will trap you into this cycle of abuse and really a spiraling downward trajectory in your life, you'll never have to face that if you just say no. So we need to start there. But I'm so proud of this state. We'll continue to kick up our efforts here and come up with ways to attack this. We're seeing positive signs, and I appreciate you asking that question because it's important for people to remember there is more that can be done. We will continue to fight this administration to do the job and secure the border and make sure that these drugs aren't flowing in. But we won't stop our efforts to deal with the reality on the ground. And so we'll continue to send folks to help those out in Texas. We'll continue to send resources and manpower to help our local agencies, and we'll continue to back up our families that are dealing with this in their homes. Any other questions?
In relation to your story, would you mind sharing how you turned your life around?
The hardest part was the functioning component of my addiction. So many, just like me, it becomes the rationalization where it becomes your oxygen, and you think you cannot perform your job, let alone get out of bed, without these drugs. It's how strong this addiction becomes. It's why it is a mental health illness, I'll argue. But I eventually got the help when eventually you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. You've heard that phrase, I'm sure many people. It's not just some bumper sticker. It's not just some exaggeration or hyperbole. It's the real thing. And luckily, hopefully, with those out there that are struggling with addiction, they'll hit that moment now. Everybody has a different rock bottom. I'm beyond blessed to have an amazing wife, Larissa, that I didn't have to lose my marriage, my home, things like that to hit my rock bottom. Okay, I was blessed when I went into treatment. I was able to live vicariously through my roommate's rock bottom, who happened to be a former Harvard professor who lost everything, his tenure, his family, his home, everything. And it really scared me. It really scared me. And in my head, I was like, that's it, Matt. Time to turn this around. Time to use this as an opportunity. You're going to go back to becoming a professional wrestler after you get sober. You're going to become 10 times a bigger star. And you're going to use that as a vehicle to help encourage little kids out there, because you're going to share your testimonial on how you overcame your addiction. That's your calling, and that's what you're going to do moving forward. Thanks for the question, sir.
You gave a lot of numbers from, number of drugs used from the state initiative. People at home might not understand kilograms, how much that can you just maybe in simple terms, even if you can, kind of just let people know how much?
Well, when you say kilograms, you're talking about the bricks, the kilograms that you see on TV and drugs. You see that brick, and that's kind of give you a ballpark there. But go back to what I said with parents. I need you to do tonight. The salt shaker, 7 to 9 grains of salt. Lay them out there, and that's what it will kill you. So if it's not mixed right or correctly, which majority of it's not, it's just thrown together, and it's going to kill you. And now you also got to remember too, these folks will take and cut other types of drugs with it, heroin, cocaine. All that stuff is done in multiple things to include cannabis. They will put that stuff in everything now because it does give you an enhanced high. It also makes it cheaper. If I can cut it with something and give you an enhanced high, you're going to keep buying. They don't really care if you die with it or not because they got another one right behind you who's going to buy it. So that whole adage about they don't want to kill off their source or their sources or their supply, it doesn't really matter because you've got to remember they're selling the kilos to people here that are mixing it and bringing it in. They're doing it in their barns, their bathtubs, hotel rooms, and if it doesn't get cleaned correctly and you get that on you, that can kill you. There was a young baby that was crawling around on an Airbnb floor. Somebody had just that 9 gram salt down there, and it got through the skin contact and killed the baby. So that's how dangerous this is, and it affects everybody. The Attorney General said with me almost 2 years ago, she saw it coming. She said, "This is a weapons of mass destruction." When you're talking about what we seize there will kill everybody in the state of Florida, that can kind of tell you how bad it is. So she was not wrong when she said this is a weapons of mass destruction. This is one. Now, fentanyl is utilized for medical procedures, but it's in a very controlled environment and with doctors. And that is where it's healthy. But when you're getting that illicit fentanyl that's coming from China and dumping it off in Mexico in their factories right across the border, making it and then sending it across, that's the fight we're fighting.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.